Hello and welcome. This episode of the Dailies will focus on the powerful images dominating front pages around the world today. Freed Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners embracing their families. Donald Trump's hero's welcome in Israel and his address to the Knesset, and his appearance at the Egypt Peace Summit, flanked by world leaders. Today, we examine how newsrooms and media outlets across the globe framed these historic moments. We'll start with the American media, which largely cast the day as Donald Trump's diplomatic triumph, spotlighting his Knesset address and central role in the hostage and prisoner releases. Reports emphasized his victory lap narrative while noting the uncertain future of his 20-point peace plan. Press highlighted Benjamin Netanyahu appeared politically sidelined, while in their view, the Egypt summit underscored both regional hesitation and Washington's commanding role. The New York Times examines the president's Knesset address and his high-profile appearance at the Peace Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, positioning him as the central figure in brokering the Gaza ceasefire and hostage release. World leaders from over 20 nations gathered under banners proclaiming Peace 2025, celebrating the end of 2 years of war. Yet the summit produced no binding commitments, only a vague declaration favoring diplomacy over conflict. While Trump enjoyed rare adulation abroad, he avoided indeed addressing Gaza's reconstruction or Palestinian statehood. His rhetoric cast the moment as a historic dawn, but practical next steps remain unclear. The spectacle highlighted Trump's political showmanship and global stagecraft more than a concrete post-war roadmap. I will stay with the New York Times, which also published an interesting analysis detailing Trump's unexpected call during his Knesset address for President Herzog to pardon Benjamin Netanyahu, who faces long-running corruption trials. The piece notes Trump's remark, framed as a lighthearted suggestion, raised serious legal and also political questions. Now, while Israel's president can indeed pardon convicted individuals, pre-trial clemency is rare, with only one precedent dating to 1986. Legal experts noted also Netanyahu's charges, bribery, fraud, and also breach of trust differ significantly from national security cases that justified past pardons. A preemptive pardon would likely face legal challenges and also risks undermining judicial credibility. The analysis concludes Trump's intervention underscores his growing influence in Israel after brokering the Gaza ceasefire, intertwining diplomacy with Israel's domestic politics. Axios revealed in a scoop that a secret late-night meeting between Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and senior Hamas leaders in Sharm el-Sheikh was pivotal in finalizing the Gaza ceasefire. With mediation from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, Trump's envoys personally assured Hamas that Donald Trump would guarantee the deal's enforcement if Hamas upheld its commitments. According to the sources, Hamas accepted after receiving Trump's message of fair treatment and a pledge to implement his 20-point plan. The direct contact, politically risky and unprecedented at this level, convinced Hamas the U.S. was indeed serious. The report concludes this behind-the-scenes diplomacy mirrors earlier secret contacts in Doha and also underscores the personal, unconventional style driving Trump's Middle East strategy. To the Wall Street Journal, which examines Trump's efforts to extend his Middle East diplomatic momentum to the war in Ukraine. The report highlights that after brokering the Gaza ceasefire, Trump plans to host Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House, with European leaders hoping he can pressure Vladimir Putin as he did Hamas. But unlike Gaza, however, Russia's nuclear arsenal and support from Chinese Communist Party complicate negotiations. The piece also quotes analysts who note Trump has yet to apply real economic or military pressure on Moscow, though he hinted at supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles. The piece also notes observers see the possibility of a Trump-brokered ceasefire, but one that could pressure Kiev into concessions, raising tensions with European allies and also highlighting the far higher stakes of this conflict. Newsweek shed the light on Jared Kushner, who is now being credited as a key architect of Donald Trump's Gaza peace breakthrough. In its analysis, the publication highlights that despite holding no official role in Trump's second term, Kushner leveraged years of personal relationships across the Middle East to help secure the ceasefire and hostage deal between Hamas and Israel. The piece also underscores how previously criticized by both Democrats and MAGA loyalists, Kushner is now earning bipartisan praise, including from former Biden officials. Allies point to his role in the Abraham Accords and Operation Warp Speed as proof of his quiet influence. Supporters argue that his business-driven, relationship-based diplomacy has reshaped the region, with some already calling this moment Abraham Accords 2.0. Moving across the Atlantic, the Times examines the UK's behind-the-scenes role in Donald Trump's Gaza peace deal. The analysis highlights that despite public disputes with US officials, Trump envoy Steve Witkoff praised UK National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell for his incredible input. Now, the piece also explains that Powell, the architect of the Good Friday Agreement, helped shape key elements of Trump's 20-point plan, which mirrors Northern Ireland's peace framework by deferring disarmament and integrating militants into political processes. Now, the analysis also contends that Britain's recognition of a Palestinian state, initially criticized by Washington, ultimately gave Arab partners diplomatic cover to back the plan. It concludes the UK, working alongside figures like Tony Blair, played a quiet but strategic role, positioning the agreement as a long-term process rather than a single breakthrough moment. To the Israeli media, whose coverage was intensely political and split in tone, pro-government outlets portrayed the day as a joint success for Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, while mainstream and opposition-leaning outlets framed it as Trump's show, highlighting Netanyahu's diminished influence and US dominance in shaping the deal. Many also noted the public's mixed mood, relief over the hostages' return, but growing frustration with Netanyahu's leadership. The Times of Israel reported on Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to decline a last-minute invitation to Sharm el-Sheikh Peace Summit, co-chaired by Donald Trump and Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Now, officially, Netanyahu cited the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah, but the piece highlights deeper political motives, chiefly fears of backlash from his right-wing coalition over appearing alongside Mahmoud Abbas and Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The report situates this episode within even a broader context of intense diplomatic maneuvering, including Erdogan's boycott threats as well. Central to Trump's Gaza peace plan, he went ahead without Netanyahu, a moment signaling Israel's growing isolation from key regional diplomacy. Menachem Rosensaft wrote in the Jerusalem Post, arguing that the end of the Gaza war marks the start of a deeper ideological struggle over Israel's future. Now, the author contends that while Donald Trump blocked Benjamin Netanyahu's annexation ambitions, Netanyahu's super Sparta vision, a militarized isolationist state, clashes with Israel's founding Athenian democratic ideals. Rosensaft contrasts these two narratives an inclusive, pluralist Israel versus an ethno-nationalist project extending from the Jordan River to the sea. Drawing on Zionist history, the author also stresses that sustainable security depends on coexistence, not permanent domination. He highlights Israeli civil society's resistance to illiberalism and warns that Netanyahu's approach risks deepening global isolation. Arab media coverage of the events of the day was measured but pointed, focusing less on celebration and more on regional power dynamics. Many outlets framed the day as a diplomatic win for Donald Trump, not for Israel, underscoring U.S. dominance in setting the terms of the deal. The Egypt Peace Summit was portrayed as a stage for Arab states' strategic calculations, yet commentaries also warned that the core Palestinian issue remains unresolved. Iyad Abu Shakra asked in Al-Sharq Al-Awsat today, now that we're done with the Nobel Prize, what about Palestine and the region? The author indeed situates Donald Trump's failed bid for the Nobel Peace Prize alongside his touted Gaza ceasefire victory, arguing that neither constitutes a true triumph. The article draws historical parallels with Cold War-era Nobel decisions to show how symbolic gestures can be strategically useful. The author critiques Trump's 20-point peace plan as shallow and politically driven, more about personal glory than sustainable peace. Also, figures like Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are portrayed as lacking regional depth, while Israeli hardliners and lingering mistrust threaten implementation. Now, ultimately, Abu Shakra warns that despite the ceasefire, the core Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains unresolved, casting doubt on the deal's long-term durability. And we'll end with the Palestine Chronicle, which published an investigative report alleging that despite the ceasefire, Israel is pursuing its war in Gaza through proxy forces. The report describes how Israeli intelligence has armed and supported three main militia groups: the Popular Forces, led by Yasser Abu Shabab, the Counter-Terrorism Strike Force, and the People's Army Northern Forces, made up of criminals, ex-security agents, and ISIS-linked elements as well. These gangs, according to the Chronicle, are accused of assassinations, aid theft, and targeting civilians and also journalists. The piece frames this as an Israeli strategy to outsource violence, create internal chaos, and project a Palestinian civil war. Deep local resentment towards these militias, however, undermines their legitimacy, suggesting this tactic may fuel instability rather than secure Israeli objectives. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.